This big, dark closet off of the bedroom upstairs of my home has a lot of space, but it's super underutilized with its slanted ceilings and it just collects clutter. I'm going to actually change this layout, having a wall built in the middle so that a smaller closet with polo drawers is on one side and the rest of the space is customized for my master bedroom, which seriously lacks clothing storage. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I opened up a doorway in this wall between these two bedrooms to provide access to this closet from my master. I am Melissa Woods and I do all kinds of DIY home improvement. If this is your first time on my channel, be sure to hit subscribe to follow along this massive closet renovation. On this side of the wall in my bedroom, the wall is actually composed of drywall. So this is the side I'm going to cut into first, just because it's a little more straightforward than the back side, which is still plaster and lathe from decades ago. I plan to place the doorway to my new closet near the window so that natural light gets into the space and it's symmetrical with the other closet opening on the opposite wall. To cut the drywall, I'm wearing a respirator and hearing protection, and I'm using my oscillating multi-tool with a plunge cut blade to cut into the drywall right along the stud. To find the stud, I use a powerful magnetic stud finder, which looks for the screws or nails that hold the drywall onto the wall instead of just trying to sense the wood behind. It's so accurate that I confidently cut through the drywall right along the edge of the stud. As soon as I started, I realized I was going to kick up dust all over my bedroom furniture. So instead of covering each piece with plastic, I used pre-tape plastic and created a little room, plasticking off an area around where I was going to work to keep all of the dust out of the rest of my bedroom. This worked amazingly well. I taped it to the ceiling and then I rolled it down and I taped a second piece so that the plastic made it all the way to the floor. Back inside my plasticed off area, I'm going to continue cutting. My plan is to cut a doorway between two of the wall studs. I'll only be removing one of the studs. Now I know that this wall is not load bearing because it does not have a wall directly below it in our floor plan, but I know that removing just one stud will put less strain on the framing of the wall than if I were to remove more and frame in what is a standard size door opening, like 32 inches. Instead, I'm just doing whatever the measurement between those two studs comes out to. I think it's just shy of 30 inches. Now I want to speak to the particular blade I'm using on my oscillating multi-tool. This tool is one of the best choices for a saw to cut through drywall, but the blade is so important because you can see here, not only does it go right through drywall easily, you can also continue down to your wood trim and it slices right through my wooden trim as well. This is because I'm using a high strength carbide blade, and the maker of these blades is the sponsor of this video, Wonderblade. This company focuses on creating blades that are durable, high strength, they're going to get the job done, and they're going to last you a long time. Their fine-tooth blade can saw through the materials I'm showing here, but also even metal like nails or small screws in the drywall if needed. Now it has a universal fit, so it very easily installs on my oscillating multi-tool as you see here, and it has that plunge depth, so I can cut through even a 1.5 inch thick stud. You can get into tight spaces, you can cut at whatever angle. This kind of tool is indispensable. The carbide tipped blade was strong enough to even slice through plaster that was on the back side of this closet wall when I was trying to relocate this light. But I wouldn't recommend cutting this material with this particular blade. Later on, I will show you the diamond crusted angle grinder blade that cut through the plaster like a hot knife in butter. So now that my doorway is cut out on the drywall, I'm going to use my magnetic stud finder again to pull the screws off. I'm doing this so I can actually reuse this piece of drywall. My magnetic stud finder is so accurate, and I knew the screws were Phillips head, that this was a huge success. When it came off the wall. I was so happy. I can reuse this drywall now with no issues, and I didn't have a big dusty mess or a bunch of garbage to throw in the dumpster. Because I followed my magnetic stud finder, I cut the first time along that stud so flush. I was amazed. Didn't really have to do any touch up. But the other stud I didn't do as accurately, it went a little quicker, and so I just cut this off so that the drywall is flush with the stud. Then I removed the box for the outlet that was there. I'm going to relocate this on the other side of the stud to the left. I don't really need to give it a lot of trim space because the trim work I'm planning for this doorway is so basic. I'm not going to put like regular molding. So I'm just marking that out, and I also used my oscillating multi-tool to cut this as well. Look at how easy and accurate that is. Now to cut through the other side of the wall that is plaster and lath, this is going to be a lot more tricky. My first thought was to use the blade to just get through the wood lath and remove the wood part, but when I did this, it caused the plaster, of course, to just start crumbling all over. So I decided I did have to go around the other side and mark out the same opening and then use the other blade for plaster to cut through and prevent any excess cracking or crumbling. This is Wonder Blade's Tough Grit Diamond Crusted Angle Grinder blade, and this thing is designed to cut through the toughest materials like porcelain, brick, cement block, metal rebar, steel piping, and plaster. You can see how quickly I was able to work. You can see sparks coming up when I would hit one of the nails, attaching the lath into the stud. And you can also see all of the dust I'm creating. So it's important doing a plaster wall that you wear respiratory protection. I also sealed off this room with plastic so that none of this nasty dust and debris would get into the rest of my home. I sealed off the ventilation to the room as well, so it wouldn't get sucked into our HVAC. Ultimately, this was the solution I used to get through the plaster and lath, and I couldn't have done it without that diamond crusted blade. It was so easy to cut through this tough material, and I had like this big metal nail sticking out. Well, I'll show you here just how quickly it sheared it off. And I noticed with this blade, the Wonder Blade brand has these areas on it that clear the debris. I've used other diamond crusted blades in the past that were not as efficient, and the blade heated up quicker because it did not have those areas to clear debris as you're cutting. So the Wonder Blade Tough Grit one was definitely superior. Now that my wall material is removed on both sides of my new doorway, I'm going to mark off with a square, like a straight line, to cut my framing. I'm just removing this single stud, and again I reached for the carbide plunge blade on my oscillating multi-tool to make quick work of this. I also used it on the tight area of my base plate to cut it flush with the stud. If you make this cut super carefully, you can actually reuse this bottom plate 2x4 because it's cut to the perfect width you'll need to add at the top of your doorway and create a pseudo header. So once I got all of that pried apart, the demolition aspect of this project is finally done, and I can remove my plastic protection. All the dust had settled at this point, and I used a shop vac to clean all of the debris up. I can't believe before there was a wall here because now I created a doorway. So the 2x4 that's going to go in the top, I drilled pocket holes, and I'm going to be screwing some Kreg screws in at an angle to connect this piece of 2x4 at the top of my doorway into the two side studs. I measured to make sure that this was an even height on both sides, but the finesse leveling will happen later when I add my pretty framing around the door. I also popped a couple long screws straight up through the center into the stud I removed that is going to, rest on the middle of this 2x4 that I'm adding. All right, at this point, if you made your doorway opening big enough to accommodate a like pre-hung door, you could just install a pre-hung door. But since mine is this custom size, I am going to nail in the thinnest paneling possible that I custom cut to the width, covering the edge of my drywall, the edge of my plaster and lathe, and the side studs of the opening. I'm using short brad nails, and this paneling's only 1/8 of an inch thick. I want to keep this doorway as wide as possible, so I picked paneling as thin as possible. Once both side panels were installed, I grabbed my laser tape measure and got the exact measurement to cut this piece for the top. This is 1/2 inch thick plywood, and it's a thicker, more substantial piece because I want to get this perfectly level. I needed something thick enough and sturdy enough I could shim it up. So here I'm leveling this piece both directions and shooting longer brad nails so that it goes through the 1/2 inch plywood, through my shims, and into the 2x4 framing. Now I'm not planning to have a door on this closet at all. That's why I'm framing it up this way. I know a lot of closets have doors, but I just don't think they're necessary, and the other closet off of this bedroom does not have a door. I plan to finish this off with some trim. The top is going to have this 1x4 that matches a lot of the other trim in this room, like around our door to enter. And then I'm going to put this like corner trim. It just makes a 90-degree angle, and this is pretty inexpensive, but I don't have enough to completely finish this door for this video. I have to pick up some more at the store. This is how the edge is going to look to cover the panel I added and to cover the cut drywall. Be sure to shop for Wonderblade's incredible products in the link in my description, and subscribe if you want to see how this whole closet renovation turns out. Also, I have no idea how I'm going to patch the floor here, so any suggestions are welcome in the comments.